could see what I see, our community and unity, no frustration from brutality, with our black nation a reality.
This is my perspective, it's my perspective, my perspective, my perspective, my perspective, my perspective, my perspective, it's my perspective, 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 is my perspective. And welcome everybody to the New African Perspective, the show that is dedicated to the liberation of new African people. I am your host, Brother Prophecy, and you should know by now, because I know y'all be checking in every week, that I'm never by myself. I always got the super duper backup, and they're the powerful, the strong, intelligent, and beautiful President and Vice President of the Republic of New Africa. They are none other than
Mama I, free the land.
Mama Ayo, free the land, comrades.
No doubt, no doubt. And we make up something called the New African Independence Movement, a part of the Republic of New Africa, provisional government of the Republic of New Africa. And we advocate for land independence, self-determination, reparation. And we're trying to establish an economic system that is not based on the exploitation of man by man. Something we're going to get into a little bit more real shortly, because every week we've been doing something that is a part of our Declaration of Independence. It's called the Aims of the Revolution, and we're up to aim number 8. Yeah, number 8. Let me see if I can look it up real quick. Pull it up on the screen so everybody can see it. Here we go. And number 8 says to end the exploitation of man by man or his environment. Kind of, you know, what we just said. So you see, we ain't just pulling this out of nowhere. To end the exploitation of man by man and the environment, his environment. So what do we think about this particular aim of the revolution? What are we talking about here? I'm gonna open it up to anybody.
That's a really, really good one. And it's very, very critical for us to say exploitation of man by man refers back to first a system of exploitation that we have had exhibited to us for the last 500 years, which is capitalism, imperialism, and then most recently white supremacy, and of course racism, which is the bedrock of this country. But when we talk about man's exploitation to man, not only are we talking about something that's systemic, but we're talking about just the basic laws of good and over evil. You're talking about man's inhumanity to man. And we are the prime examples as enslaved Africans and its descendants, and almost the what I call the very intentional genocide of indigenous and aboriginal peoples here in the northern hemisphere, southern hemisphere, and spreading out from there. I yield.
Definitely.
Exactly. And so, you know, it really sounds like we are in the process of, and our aim is to realign ourselves, you know, us being a part of nature, people being a part of nature. So our aim is to exploit man by man, meaning that we are not going to sell each other short. We're not going to be selling each other. You know, capitalism in itself, somebody has to lose in capitalism. So exploitation of man, that is direct connection. Us ending capitalism. The same thing, exploiting the land, the environment, right? We're not about that. Aligning ourselves with nature, aligning ourselves with universal law and order. We are the caretakers of the earth. We are the caretakers of the planet. So therefore, we take care of each other, and we take care of the land and the resources that we live on and around, you know. So that lets you know, pretty much what our principles are. You know what I'm saying? Like we not about downing each other. We're not about selling each other out. We're not about none of that, and we're not about ruining our environment. And I yield.
Exactly.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, really, every time we go over whether it's an aim of the revolution, is it a part of the New African Creed, or whatever principle in Nguzo Saba, um, they're so relevant to what's going on, and they address the ills of the situation that we find ourselves in, not only as New African people, but people all over the world. When they're talking about the exploitation of man by man, you really talk about what was creating crime, what's creating poverty, what's creating mass disease, what's preventing people from really reaching their highest level of potential. And that's an economic system that is based on profit, greed, exploitation over the well-being of human beings. And this is a thing that, you know, goes back to ancient times. If you're religious, you can pick up the Bible. It says the love of money is the root of all evil. Well, that's what you're seeing right now. That's what you see in your community. That's why you have companies that are willing to dump chemicals in your backyard, even though children play there, you know, because they're trying to maximize their profit margin. And they do it to us because we're the most vulnerable. We are least protected. We don't control our community. We don't have control over the institutions. All of the things that are supposed to protect us are owned by the same individuals that's trying to exploit us. So it's like we're getting hit with a double whammy. So I mean, it's just brilliant and insightful on our ancestors' part to really put forth principles and goals and aims of revolutions that address the core issue of our problems. And so, you know, kudos to our ancestors. They did it again. And
Absolutely.
that's it. Yeah. They set up a blueprint. We just got to pick it up, make sure we always update it through the generations, and just, you know, run with it, implement it. But
I like that.
definitely. But we got a good show, a lot of things going on. Madam President, what we got on tap for the show today?
Well, I know for a fact that in our Black Power file, we are going to be discussing the riot of 1908 that happened in Springfield, Illinois. A very interesting conversation. Then, of course, in our cadre corner, are we going over Nat Turner's document? Is that what we're going over? Or did we?
Yeah. Sounds good.
Okay.
I can direct a few people.
Okay. So we'll be going over that. What's the name of that document?
True Confessions of Nat Turner, I think.
The True Confessions of Turner. Yes. That. And then in our discussion, we're going to have an interesting discussion comparing resistance, rebellion, historical resistance to resistance and rebellion of today, and what the differences are, what we have laid our eyes on. Okay, so this should be quite an interesting conversation today.
Oh, it promises to be always.
Definitely. So I guess I'm going to start off with some things that's been going on in the news, a couple of things. This is kind of an update of the story that we've done probably a couple of times. So there are 6 Mississippi, I guess, formal Mississippi police officers who have just, I think last Monday, pled guilty to the torture of 2 Black men in Rankin County, Mississippi. Now, these 6 police officers, they were called the Goon Squad. And what they did is they busted into Mr. Eddie Parker's and Michael Jenkins' house without a warrant or anything like that, handcuffed them and tortured them for like a few hours. They waterboarded them. sexually assaulted them, shot one of them, Mr. Michael Jenkins, in the mouth, and it was just horrible. Now, these brothers are suing for $400 million, and initially it took a while before anybody was even paying attention to this case. You know, it had, like most cases, people cry. You know, we say something terrible has happened and the system just denies it until we make enough noise, until they have to pay attention to it, and then something happens. Well, something finally has happened. These six officers have pled guilty, and I'm gonna try to go to a story of it really quick. Just bear with me for a second.
I think more indictments are coming as well. They mentioned something else.
Law enforcement officers have pleaded guilty to federal charges after investigators say the white officers tortured two black men for hours, then tried to cover up the crime. Miguel Almaguer now with what the victims are telling us tonight.
Tonight, Eddie Parker and Michael Jenkins say justice can be served now that the 6 white Mississippi law enforcement officers who beat them for nearly 2 hours have entered guilty pleas.
Finally, gave up. I knew how it was to give up. It wasn't a surviving. It was a hoping I'll make it to the end.
Prosecutors in Mississippi say the officers tortured, used racial slurs, and sexually assaulted the 2 black men inside a Braxton home last January. Court documents reveal the officers, who called themselves the Goon Squad, broke down the door, beat, tased, and threatened to rape Parker and Jenkins while calling them the N-word and monkeys as they accused the men of sleeping with white women.
They come in there to do what they wanted to do, which torture us, and they came to do what they did.
The 5 Rankin County Sheriff's deputies, Brett McAplin, Jeffrey Middleton, Christian Dedman, Hunter Elward, and Daniel Opdyke, were joined by Richland police officer Joshua Hartfield. The federal complaint says one officer put a gun in Jenkins' mouth, pulled the trigger, and nearly killed him.
What did I do? Are these, really officers? Do they do this? Why are they doing it to me?
Authorities say the officers tried to cover up their crime by planting a gun in the home and drugs on the victims after their so-called raid. The officers charged with several crimes, including civil rights violations and obstruction of justice.
In their minds, the law and the Constitution be damned. They became the criminals they swore to protect us from.
After their guilty plea to federal charges, the members of the so-called Goon Squad still face state charges and years behind bars.
Okay, and that was a story about what basically happened. And what's really interesting to me on that, because this particular story, it reminds me kind of about what happened in Memphis with Tyree Nichols. It was like some guys police officers who just basically just went renegade and just attacked somebody. But if you remember, down here in Memphis, it was a few weeks and they had all the names of the police officers and everything, arrested real quick. You didn't have to protest. You didn't have that fool or nothing. They just did it. This case, you have some white police officers doing the same thing. It's the same routine. They hid the police officers. They denied them. They had to get an attorney and they had to have protests and all of these type of things. And the media had to get involved. Black media had to get involved to spread the word. And finally, you got some attention being drawn to this case. So what do y'all think about this particular situation?
What was the white suspect, the white officer's name? Do we know those names?
The white officers, the ones that just pled guilty.
Right.
Yeah, their names are available now, but it's almost been a year since this happened.
Exactly.
Yeah. I don't have the names right here.
Okay, I'll look it up.
Yeah. Well, yeah, y'all have any more perspectives on this particular story?
Justice has been served in the fact that they are now being charged. It took a year, and notice the dynamics. It has taken a year of behind the scenes negotiating, and trust me, if there was a way for there to have been a cover up or a tweaking of the facts, there definitely would have been. But all options, all options have been, uh, looked at. They could not get out of this particular charge, especially, and they're heinous charges. You come into someone's home, you begin to do the aggressing. You have them in a situation, because it sounded like there were 6 of them initially. There were, you had them in there. You were, of course, calling them out of their names. You were insulting them. You were questioning their moral character. And they say they're being accused of sexual misconduct. Trust me, one of them or several of them officers have what we call tendencies where they want to use sodomy and other types of things to what I call humiliate, and take someone's humanity by force, which is a typical. I mean, it's just almost as if you're going to a flashback into enslavement days, where they have the authority to do anything and everything that they wanted to do to people of African descent, new Africans. So in my mind, I'm seeing parallel. I'm seeing two paradigms at once. What happened way back in the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s, which is happening in the 2023 today, except they've now been given more power, because before, the ability to do whatever you wanted to do to your piece of property was allowed by the Constitution, state laws. You being a so-called officer to defend and protect and to serve, you just given even more empowerment to do what you want to do, and at the same time, uh, it appears as if I can bring a bogus gun, I can bring some bogus herbs, I can bring all of this and charge all kinds of things. But in the meantime, sexual assault and you shooting me in the mouth, because that's like cutting my tongue out or taking my eyes off for an offense. So it's pretty interesting when you want to put the parallels together, and put them up side by side. It's a very, very interesting dynamic. I yield.
Definitely.
No, I know we don't want to be attached to crap like this, y'all. Continue to be attached to stuff like this. To continue to be in these folks' addiction. To me, it's ridiculous that we would even want reform, want to do part of any of this. Because I mean, this has been our story. How long this been our story? Our continuous story. It's a continuous story. Like riding off what Mama Ayo said, these folks literally humiliate, dehumanize, did not care. Looked at this was fun to them. This was fun to these white men. And you know it was. So, I mean, I'm going to say what I always say. I mean, to me, this should be even more motivation to separate ourselves from such ridiculous. It's not even an English word bad enough to describe that type of crap. Okay? Nah. All of it is an understatement. So, it's gonna keep continuing if we continue to do what we do, which by our actions, we support this. And I'm saying by our collective action, we support this.
Absolutely.
So it's not gonna stop just because we want it to. Just because we think about it, just because we say, "Oh, that's horrible," it ain't gonna stop because of that. Don't stop when we take the necessary effort, extreme measures to be able to respond properly across the board properly. And I'm gonna leave it at that.
Definitely, I definitely do agree. And when you said that, Mamayo, when you said that you've seen parallels between what has happened in the past and what has happened now, it's the same thing, because really it's just a continuation of the same struggle. A lot of people disconnect the things that happened in the past, and slavery, through Jim Crow, through the 60s and whatnot, and they disconnected like the things that happened with the police and other things that happen today are some separate, but it's not. It's all one continuous struggle. We're all part of the same fight, and we're still fighting the same enemy, the same system that is giving us the same oppression. It just manifests itself. It decorates itself a little bit differently. It kind of puts some perfume and cologne to kind of cover the rotten stench of this system, but it's still there. It's still there. You can't cover it all up. It just smells a little different when you're getting exploited, but you're still getting exploited. We're still getting brutalized. We're still getting oppressed. So, I mean, you're absolutely right. And when you bring up the sexual assault and this long tradition, it's something in our history that we don't even talk about. It affects us directly today within our community, and that is something that happened on these slave farms. Some people call them sex farms. They were breeding farms, where rape was forced, in order to try to produce more quote unquote property for the oppressor. They would make sure that young women, as soon as they're old enough to have their period, as soon as they're old enough to reproduce, they would be sent to these places so they could be raped, forcibly penetrated, so they can be impregnated and produce an offspring that could be another piece of so-called property under this system of slavery. And you have to understand the type of psychological damage and trauma that does to a people when you have a whole population of people who was forcefully raped. And it wasn't just men, women. These men were raped. Young boys were raped. There's a long history of this behavior going back to the Greeks with, these individuals, a long history of that. They used to say the highest form of love was man on boy love, and that's true. That's in their writing. It's called a dude named Socrates. People celebrate him. It's a great philosopher. And that's what he said. And we find that tradition still alive today. And so, yeah, so this behavior is, I mean, really, it's nothing different. It's the same old thing,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Definitely. It's another story. We kind of did this on other broadcasts, but since we've been out, I haven't had a chance to do it on this particular broadcast and get your perspective from it. So I'm gonna revisit it. Down in Florida, continue to attack our history, our story. They made another law. This one, they already said we can't teach our history. We can't teach anything that makes white people feel bad. Well, now they're saying that it's mandatory to teach that slavery was beneficial to the people who were enslaved. In other words, it was a benefit for us for being enslaved. In other words, thank God for these civilizer white people for taking us out of Africa and giving us these good jobs where we were, that was beneficial to us. This is what they are teaching, or at least attempting to force to being taught in Florida. Of course, there's a lot of pushback with this, but hey, I think you on mute, sir. Yeah, there you go.
I want to be in the classroom. I want to just in the classroom is the first lesson of this. Like, you understand what I'm saying? Like, I want to see exactly what these folks are saying. What book is it? What I want to know. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Folks have been going way too just out of order, out of line. Like, when you think about the condition of Black people in America, I'm just going to stick to America specifically, really Black people all over the world, but Black people in America specifically right now, there is no way that these claims that people are now attempting to make is has a inkling of truth. There's no way. A people who have lost their native tongue, all of their culture, have went through riot and attack after attack upon attack upon attack in this particular country, right? And you mean to tell me what?
Hey, that benefited us.
Come on. I just want to be in the classroom. I want to be there with the first lesson. I want to know exactly what's being written. Like, what is the story? Like, what is the made up story? Like, what else go along with them lines? Like, for real.
Remember that we have been under, I think since the, I know since the 70s and probably before that, but me bearing witness to social manipulation. It is this Florida will be your test case. They will let the rest of the 50 states know if this particular initiative was successful or not. And based on that, the law will change or be aborted or whatever. So it is incumbent upon the parents in the public school system and beyond to assess what they know about our history, what they know about what we say real time, and get to the authorities and show your what I call rebellion, which means keep your children at home and I'm going to homeschool them because you no longer serve our purposes. Our purposes are to tell our children the truth, but that has to be community by community. Because from what I know, and I can't bear witness for Florida, I would caution to say that at least 80% of public school children in most places in America, not all, particularly in the eastern coast, the southern states and beyond, are going to be filled with children that look like us, that look like you and I, that are African related, etc., brown and Black children, and they're going to be given a distorted look of history to the point where you're not going to address that the indigenous were conquered by certain European powers. That's why we speak certain languages. You don't speak your mother tongue because of these reasons. You speak somebody else's language and tone. And now you're saying that it was a benefit? Of course it was a benefit. It was a benefit because it pushed this country well beyond the industrial age. It launched them into obstetrics because they used us as experiments on their drugs and surgical procedures to the point of torture without anesthesia, by the way, or with anesthesia that they were manipulating. And to the fact that cotton, tobacco, indigo became king, and rice, by the way, and not to mention the stolen inventions. Do we need to go on? And as a nation, the people in Florida, our comrades, our brothers and sisters, you gonna stand for that? Malcolm says, stand for something or fall for anything. And this is what is happening in Florida. You better rebel.
So is this the whole state of Florida or is certain counties? Is the whole state?
Well, it's a state mandate, so it's a state law. So I would assume it's covering the whole state.
Ooh, I wonder how these. Oh, we got to talk to a couple of folks that we know that are teachers in Florida. See how that's rolling, and like in real time, because we hear mandates pass all the time, but passing it in real time and those conversations at them board meetings and folks passing it in real time. I wish I was in Florida right now.
Man, Yeah, I mean, I know. I think I remember seeing a news clip when they were actually debating it and how they were the different arguments that were made. I mean, the arguments were they was tearing the arguments up. They was doing what you would expect when you have such a ridiculous law like this even proposed. And after all of the stuff that seemed like it was common sense, they still passed it.
So this is a state mandate.
Mm-hmm.
So this happened on the Congress floor.
I guess so.
Or the state
Florida Congress.
Florida Congress floor.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yep.
I'm sorry. It's really mind blowing to me. Like, it's the fact that it got passed. That's mind blowing. What was the argument for it to get passed? Like, what?
I think they specifically said that. I was about to start laughing. I'm sorry, but they said that black people learn certain skills by being enslaved, so it benefited us, because we learned.
Yeah.
Like, black people.
Use a lie. Use a lie in the
all the originators of civilization learned it was beneficial because black people learned skills. Get the fuck out of here. I'm sorry. Oh, it's crazy. Wow, y'all. Come on.
No, what is even crazier is that this will be the test case. And if there's they will determine and they will look at the pushback from the population, what it does, what it's able to achieve, because this will be the first year that particular strategy or learning direction is implemented, and reports will be published, papers will be written, research will be done, and it will be distributed to the rest of the states to say, oh yeah, because this and this and this happened and this and this and this did not happen, go ahead and go for it.
Yeah. That's usually how it goes. You're right. If we don't act up too much about stuff, then they just slide it on through. And next thing you know, it's in everybody's household. So yeah. I figured y'all that will be interesting to you all.
It's going to mean that new Africans, we are going to have to go to the next level, meaning homeschool, African-centered education, collectives, going to those faith-based organizations to provide stronger education for our children, and definitely parents, teachers, aunties, uncles. We have to get on our research ourselves. We have to institute and embed in our children little tidbits of pieces of information from the home, which is as accurate as you can get. And if you don't know, send them places where they can get the information, so that our children are given the historical truth about who, what, where, when, why, and how, and be able to step into the arena with the rest of the world and say categorically, this happened and we are in this condition because the country from which you came from, France, Germany, Britain, Portugal, Spain, did I mention Germany? Did I mention Switzerland? You all involved yourself, and even the brothers and sisters who call themselves the Jewish population. You enabled this particular system of inhumanity, man's inhumanity against man, to be perpetuated in the name of power, money, colonization, capitalism, which evolved itself to capitalism, imperialism, white supremacy, and racism to exist. And you uphold it because there's no pushback from anybody that is not new African. And I yield.
Definitely. I'm gonna go to a couple of comments. We got quite a few. And we spending a whole lot of time on it. So I'm gonna go through a couple of them, and then we're gonna keep on with the show. Melly Queen said we have to take back control of our children's education and upbringing. If your child has to go into these indoctrination centers, equip them to be ready with their story and their culture. Definitely. On point, Queen. On point, Queen. He's like, yes,
Absolutely.
it is.
Thank you, Belly.
Yeah,
Yes.
it is. Yeah, it is the whole state. The Santos is an asshole. That's one you got to look for. He's kind of like a Donald Trump, but a little smarter. DeSantos, he one of them. He been going on a rampage. Let me see. So I saw a video that had Frederick Douglass was supporting slavery by saying that, and I quote, our forefathers made a great compromise to achieve something great, the making of the United States. And it said that the Constitution is a great document of liberation. The psychosis is real. Now that's interesting because I've never heard Frederick Douglass saying that, anything like that. You know, I've heard a lot that Frederick Douglass has said, and I've never heard him say that. You know, and yeah.
My comment would be,
Yeah, so I mean,
first you say,
And we got to be looking at that too, because if they rewriting history, they rewriting quotes too.
Yep.
Writing it up.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, that seems like that's something that might be under something that is taken out of context from Frederick Douglass. Because I mean, I can hear him saying something like, yeah, our ancestors built this country and made this country great, but you know, not softening it up like, yeah, we made a great compromise in order to make the country great. Yeah, you know, it was a compromise. It was a damn compromise.
And he has a very, very long speech that he delivered on the 4th of July or July. And that debunks everything. Are we wiping out his July 4th speech about what this nation has not been able to accomplish to its so-called colored citizens, Negro citizens, the descendants of enslaved Africans? Come on now. That's why it is very important that I ask people, encourage people, start getting those books, the books that have been written and have been edited and have been published, so that you can do a direct comparison, because lies are being slipped into some of these newer editions, and we have to hold on to those books. I know they take up a lot of room in your homes, and a lot of the new generation wants everything on zip drive, dip drive, blah blah blah. You better have some of those old antique books in your possession. You hear me? I'm trying to tell you. They better have them.
Yeah, we call them primary sources. That's really important. So you can get it from the source, not a interpretation or rewrite or someone's translation of it. But yeah, we'll be back, and when we get back, we're gonna talk about some Nat Turners in our Black Power file right here at the New African Perspectives. Free the land, y'all.
America, full of promises. Time to cash them in. You run from it quick. You never keep your word. I learned from it quick. You keep abusing me. You dumb.
Europeans murdered 98% of the indigenous population right here in Turtle Island in order to steal the land. An entire nation of African people were captured and forced into a brutal system of chattel slavery just so they could work and cultivate the land. All wars are fought over land, not over terrorism, not over religion, not even to win the hearts and minds of the people, but for the actual land and the resources within the land. So it is safe to say that land is the foundation to all freedom. So if we truly want to be free, then our struggle is for land. Free the land.
study the writings, speeches, documents of our freedom fighters in order to free our neo-colonialized minds. This is the Cadre Corner.
So it's on you, Mama Ayo.
Oh, well, today I think that we want to talk about the insurrection that occurred, which is one of the most, they say one of the strongest, most controversial slave rebellions that occurred in America. And that, of course, would be our brother, The True Confessions of Nat Turner, which happened, of course, between August 21st and August 23rd of 1831. And when all things were said and done, systematically, Nat Turner and his supporters, and Nat Turner, by the way, was a self-educated man. He was a preacher. So in that in itself, we have to look at that spirit of liberation from a religious perspective, and how he was able to rally men, women, and children, mostly men, of course, and to start this insurrection, to start this act of rebellion. And they went from plantation to plantation. They got rewarded as they went, because of course you had some people who were traitors or informed on Nat Turner, but they were able to actually kill off men, women, and children, white men, women, and children, anywhere between 55 to 65 persons, or they were kind of stopped. It happened, of course, in Southampton County, Virginia. And it started at, of course, this man called John Travis. I'm sorry, maybe Joseph Travis, started at his farm, starting with them giving up their lives and it moving systematically until there was an alert sent up. And, for the next maybe month, because they were on the run for a while, the insurrection. They were on the run. Most of them were caught quickly, by the way, quickly tried. And of course, Nat Turner was on the run for a while until he was captured on someone's plantation. He was hiding in kind of the groove of an old tree. It wasn't in a cave, and he had enough space to be in there and to hold himself. They say, according to some of the reports, because I've read a few of them, that they utilized his wife to get some of the information. She literally had some papers and notes that he had written down in her possession. She was beaten. So pieces of information that they gathered were beaten out of her. And of course, other people helped with turning him in. I remember that they say that he was captured. Of course, sometime around October 31st, I remember that because that's my Earth Strong. He was captured in that same year, 1831. So from August to October, he was on the run. Nat Turner. And they finally captured him. And by November 11th of the same year, of course, he was hung. They did ask him, did he have anything to say before he was hung? And they said, and of course, his response, and I'm saying this kind of paraphrasing, he said, didn't they hang Jesus Christ for his views? So that was his message to us, that you have to sacrifice. You have to sacrifice for freedom. You have to sacrifice. You have to do what is necessary. That is one of the strongest acts of rebellion outside of Haiti, along with Gabriel Prosser, all kinds of the Sono rebellion, and it goes on and on and on. But that was one that was probably had more loss of white life. And they quickly had to put measures in place after that particular time to make it even more difficult for people to read. Because as I said, Nat Turner was very well read. He was considered a preacher man. and he held a lot of, his words were very articulate. Before he was hung, there was a reporter that took down his thoughts, and that book event that those notes eventually turned into the True Confessions of Nat Turner. And I encourage you to go into Black bookstores, to go into Amazon, wherever you can get them, and get you a personal copy for your home library, for your children and yourself and the family to review and to analyze, and put it in its historical context and the wisdom of Nat Turner's words. And with that, comrades, I yield.
That's the Confessions of Nat Turner. Great book. I remember when I read, these books, because when he was being interviewed, the individual, the white guy who interviewed him, initially was like just, trying to do the old okey doke, to, just wish it away as this old crazy black dude who did something. But when he was finished with the interview, this white man was convinced that Nat Turner, this was he had a spiritual calling. This was a spiritual calling, because I remember that Nat Turner said he was in the forest, the woods, and he looked in the sky, and the sky turned red, and he had visions of white bodies and black bodies engaged in war, and he knew that was a sign from God that it was his job and responsibility to fight this system of oppression. If you go to Kemet today, that very image in which Nat Turner described is right there on the walls in Kemet. That's Egypt, for people who don't know. So yeah,
Absolutely.
You look like you want to jump in there, sir.
Look, talk about catching the Holy Ghost, okay? Most don't catch the Holy Ghost, let it count for something. You hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Count for something. Let it count. Let it count. Let it liberate us all. You understand? I love. This is that's one of my favorite historical people. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I love all of our ancestors, yet this one is one of my favorite because he caught the Holy Ghost.
Mm-hmm.
So he had no choice. Like, he saw it, the vision clear, and he was very obedient. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Very.
And we will forever be calling his name because he was obedient. We will forever call his name. Forever.
and the supporters, the men and the women who assisted in this particular, what we call as an insurrection, or what we call a real rebellion. It was a revolt. And if only we have people who are on the same mission and the same purpose, because there's always someone that looks like us that goes and rats us out. Otherwise, I think that particular initiative would have yielded more results. Because look, somebody had to be helping him if he was on the run for almost 2 more months. He had that Underground Railroad going on, brothers and sisters. Let's not be funny. Let's not be cray-cray about this. He had a whole underground network helping him. Let's be clear. All right.
Yes,
I yield.
indeed. Yes, so Christians, all my Christian listeners, is your guy to look at, because to me, he exuded the true spirit of being a Christian, right? He said, Jesus, if they they're gonna persecute me. It was, you understand what I'm saying? But if you call yourself Christian, you need to be Nat Turner. Was a revolutionary. Nat Turner was a revolutionary, and so should you. If you walk in the way and the light of Jesus, okay?
Definitely. Man, a couple of things about his insurrection. Nat Turner, like you said, he was a preacher, and he was trusted. He was a good Negro. They loved Nat. They trusted him with their lives. That's why he was able to do what he could do. And that's what made him such a beautiful example, because when he did what he did, it sent shockwaves through this whole slave system, because during slavery, the stereotype that was perpetuated about black people, it wasn't this, oh, we're this overly aggressive, violent, all of the things that you hear about us today. They had another stereotype, kind of lazy, passive, non-aggressive, happy-go-lucky, just fine with everything, not a care in the world, because they use that to justify the enslavement of our people, to say, well, you know what, they're good under this slave condition. Slavery's good for them. You see, they're just happy, cool, happy-go-lucky. That was the stereotype. But when Nat Turner came along, he crushed all of that. It was like, hell no, this was a good dude. We used to carry him around to other plantations to show other black people how we need you to be. And yeah, they was like, oh no, we don't need you to be like that. Mm-hmm. And you know,
his benefit being able to travel to all of them different places,
yes,
had context that he made from all of them different places too.
Mm-hmm.
That ended up working in his benefit across the board, you know.
Absolutely.
Yep. I see Melly Queen. She asked a couple of questions. She said, what year was Nat Turner's rebellion again? That was 1831. 1831, and it was influenced. Yeah, it was influenced by what happened in the Haitian Revolution. You know, another very important rebellion that happened in August. And I guess we got to move along since we're talking about rebellion. So what does that look like for us today compared to the rebellions of the past? You have rebellions, you have riots, the Watts riots. Matter of fact, was just the anniversary of it was just on the 12th. Another riots that happened in Ferguson because of Mike Brown, also in August, all part of Black August. Like, what does that actually mean? You know, or rebellion in today's time compared to rebellion of the past? And I'm gonna open that up.
I kind of have a different view of what rebellion looks like, because rebellion is not demonstrations. I want to say that again. Demonstrating is not a form of rebellion. A rebellion means that you have internalized a concept, you have internalized and begin to manifest it from inside out, to rebel against a system, to go against what is supposed to be what they call status quo. Status quo is saying that Black people, enslaved Africans and their descendants, are at the bottom of the economic chain, to be exploited, to be dehumanized. And when you take a rebellious attitude, that you're doing your research, you're doing that internal work, you're doing that shedding of old habits and old ideas, of miseducational practices, and you are transforming yourself into rebelling. And that's going to look different. That means you're not going to eat the same things that are going to keep you what you call ill. You're not going to buy the same things. You're not going to know. You're going to stop not looking at the same things, buying the same things, drinking the same things. So it's like a total rebooting of who you're supposed to be. And then it's going to spread out to others that think and look and begin to incorporate practices just like you, to incorporate the Nguzo Saba into your life, to incorporate the laws of Ma'at, natural law, to know that we do not uphold a system of capitalism, imperialism, white supremacy, and definitely racism into us. We don't accept it. We're not walking in that path. Is a sign of rebellion.
Yes. And to compare rebellion back then, like just kind of adding on to what we just talked about in terms of Turner, you know, a lot of rebellions, specifically in the early 1800s within the U.S., was encouraged by the Haitian Revolution. Like a lot of them, a bunch of Africans here in the States got word. It was like, yo, that here too, right? But like Mama Ayo said, rebellion is not marching. That's not rebelling. The only way that I can see a march being beneficial is if you have gathered all of them people, right, to actually say, we the people, and you got all folks that usually don't really happen. But you got all of these folks, and you there to say everybody is signing this petition to negate so and so, or to negate this particular law, or to take this off of the books and do it right now because we, right? Like a lot of times when a lot of these marches take place, certain aims and goals, they it's not necessarily there per se. Folks are just coming to speak their voice. Yeah, we went to protest so and so. Yet how effective was that? Like how more effective would it have been if more organizations put behind knowing that it's about to be 100,000 folks show up downtown? Like what's the extra steps versus just coming to say, oh, we against this, but nothing concretely done, right? Folks just I felt good, I spoke up against it, but then you still dealing with the same thing, right? That's a matter of folks not necessarily knowing their rights as citizens, not necessarily knowing that when you do get that number of people together, okay, which you get that amount of number of people together, you know what I mean? Being more, and that's what be lacking. The intentionality is what lacks. You know what I'm saying? But coming up, oh, we're marching for what? What's the goal? What's the aim? What y'all about to do that to actually eliminate status quo? What you about to do to eliminate status quo? Because that's what rebellion is. We're eliminating status quo. We're eliminating the ways and means of today. We're eliminating this slave system. We're eliminating the things that does not do our community well. That's what rebellion is, the actual elimination of a system, right? So, you know, that's the difference. You know, these days, I would say the closest I've seen in rebellion, so to speak, is the formations of whole communities, right? Mm-hmm. The formation of whole communities, which you got the MOVE community, you got the Dr. York whole community, and probably is a couple of others that I was totally attacked and removed, right? Because the state or the federal, the Fed saw, okay, this is a problem for us, right? I look at that as being rebellious because you literally took it upon yourself. We're not even living up within the status quo ramifications anymore. We're gonna set up our own everything, and then we're gonna move from there. The missing factor today, in my opinion, is the discipline of arms. That's what we've been missing. We've been missing that for a little while. We saw remnants of that in the 60s and the 70s heavily when Black Panthers, other political movements would show up armed. We saw remnants of that in the 20s where, look, they wasn't going no place unarmed. So, you know, it's starting to look a little interesting these days, y'all, in terms of rebellion, because our brothers and sisters these days don't even, let me not speak on it. Looking a little happy in terms of rebellion, in my opinion, from what I see. Because, you know, rebellion, that's active, that's action. You know what I'm saying? So I don't see the rebellious spirit like I would love to these days. And that, in my opinion, that's what I see. You know what I mean? I don't see as folks is not as hungry because this particular society has made folks quote unquote comfortable. So you don't see the rebellious spirit as much. The most you're gonna see these days, you're gonna see it behind the wall. Mm-hmm. Because they actually have even though we're all prisoners of war, as an extra prisoner of war, right? So you might get a little bit more behind the walls, but in terms of out here on these streets, yeah. Maybe y'all got some more to add because I'm not really feeling what I'm seeing in 2023. in terms of rebellion.
Gotcha. Well, when you look at like what goes on today, it's more of you're looking at more of a protest turning into a riot, and a riot is different than a rebellion. Um, a riot is not organized. It's kind of a spontaneous action that happens because people are upset and emotions overboard, and things kind of erupt. But they're unorganized, they lack leadership, and they lack direction, and they really don't go anywhere because after the police come and break things up, tear gas things and everything, people, it just kind of dies down. Rebellions are organized. Nat Turner was organized. They have plans. They have, strategies, goals, and ultimately, if the rebellion is not put down, it will turn into revolution. What happened in Hades turned to a revolution that led to an independent African state. That's ultimately the difference. We don't really need rebellion. I mean, we don't need riots. We need revolution. Now, to understand things in its proper perspective and being political, a riot is really just the people who's working out, exalting all remedies. That's when a people who still is thinking that, there's hope in the system. There's hope in the system, and I'm depending on the system. Now I'm pissed off at the system, and I lash out. That's a stage of development. In the 60s, it seemed like we had overcome that stage, and the masses of us got knocked back down to now the point that, we have a lot of rioting. So it's like, I understand that form of protest, but it's not going to suffice. It's not going to gain us what we actually need. So when you look at the whole idea and principles of rebellion, you got to have organization, because when you get in a situation and they call it the crap hit the fan, and you in a situation where the National Guard is sent out to put you down. If you don't have your leadership in place, if you don't have organized, if you have not already prepared and planned for what's going to happen and what your enemy is going to do for you, then it's not going to last. You're not going to last very long. And especially if you don't already have aims and goals. When you're in a riot, you don't really really what you're just trying to do. You're trying to make the system be accountable for something. You're trying to get some police locked up. You're trying to, make them do something in particular, but that you're not really organized enough to really change the system in a real way. You're just trying to get a moment. Hey, I'm trying to get them people who beat up Mike Brown, who killed Mike Brown. I need to get him locked up. I need to get this changed. I need to get this whatever. But it never really addresses the true nature of the problem, which is the complete overthrow of the system, really. And I don't want to start talking too strong up here to get us cut off. But yeah, so we don't really need riots. We need a real rebellion, and we need organization, and we need all of those things, and we need to be preparing within our communities for all situations. For a situation if they try to cut your power supply off, if they, whatever they might do in order to prevent you from struggling for your people, you need to be prepared. You need to be prepared for what if they implement martial law? What if, something go down? And because a lot of these Rex 84 plans that they have, the contingency plans, they've already created them for the purpose of putting down a rebellion, putting down an insurrection, putting down a revolution, because they understand that anytime you have oppression oppression itself is automatically going to create a resistance to that oppression. That's a dialectical contradiction or law. You know, oppression creates its own opposite. And that is the resistance to its oppression. And the more oppression that a people face, the stronger the opposition to that oppression. That's why J. Edgar Hoover's always said, make sure we prevent the rise of a black messiah. You know, he didn't have to have any kind of biblical insights to understand that Garvey was coming, that Malcolm was coming, and more are coming. You know, he understood that the United States has been oppressing black people for oh so many centuries, and the very oppression is going to bring about the existence of individuals who are going to be articulate, strong, and bold, brave enough to say no more, and have the ability to capture the attention of the people and lead them against this system. So, but anyway, my whole point is we need rebellions. Ultimately, we need revolution. Riots, that's just an emotional thing that does not lead to true change. And I'm gonna go to a couple of comments. Let me see.
Okay.
You see, did they stick? Did this sick mutts not take Nat Turner and discard his body and make oars out of it? So as far as Nat Turner, after he was executed, they cut off many of his body parts, and it's rumored that Nat Turner body parts are still floating around the South today, sitting in old white folks' basements and whatnot. Actually, when I was in college, my senior dissertation, which I did on a comparison of the Black power of the Black nationalist movement with the integrationist movement, and I'm thinking, yo, man, ain't nobody killing mine, you know. And this old white lady did a paper on lynchings, and she had firsthand experience of it. You know, she was talking about how, you know, her grandfather used to go lynch black people, and how they told the children that these were all black bad people and all this type of thing. So yeah, I'm pretty sure they still got some of Nat's body parts flowing around. This is a very, 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 very sick system in which we live in.
And not only his body parts, okay?
Mm-hmm.
That
Yep.
souvenirs. Like they literally took black people's body parts as souvenirs, okay? Made all types of stuff out of it. Used the skin as leather, used different, I mean, really sick and disgusting. So it's not only Nat Turner, all of our ancestors that was lynched in different body parts. Mama Ayo discussed earlier how in the quote unquote medical field, the prosthetic world, the what you call it? What's the female doctor?
Gynecologist.
all of that,
Mm-hmm.
all of them practices we was the first practice.
Yep.
The first practice. So you know that's white folks sick culture. Okay, that's what they've done, and I think it's quite interesting. White folks now, if they cleaning out their grandmamas and their grandfathers, great grandfathers den and shit, I'm sure they find all types of stuff.
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. What's up? I see Freedom Power checking in. How you doing, brother? She said exactly 100%. Prop C. Martial law is slowly being applied. And in DC, we got council members petitioning for the National Guard to take over the black community to stop the homicide. That's crazy. And that's what they're basically gonna use. That's the justification they're gonna use. Hey, there's so much of this so-called black on black crime, y'all out of control, and y'all need us to come in and protect you from yourself, and therefore we're gonna lock down the whole thing. And basically that's another method of controlling people. And you know, they use slick methods in order to do it. They always come with the justification of we're doing something to benefit the people. Melly Queen said, yes, I agree about that. Martial law, that's why they are doing these rolling blackouts in several communities. You see where they have the lights out in part of the towns for days just to see how we will respond. Okay. And I know, you know, like Mama Ayo was talking earlier about, you know, the law in Florida, how they will do things as a little test case to see exactly how the people respond. And that's for real. That's for real. That's part of social engineering. It's actually rumored that what's that guy, Jim Jones in the Guyana, they saw the Guyana tragedy, that this guy was just it's more than a rumor, because there, you know, documents that linking him to the CIA. And this white guy who had a cult, a whole lot of people, because he talked about social. I mean, if you actually listen to him, you'd be like, okay, he actually got a point on some of the things, because he talked about creating a society that wasn't based on capitalism, and it was some good things that he was actually talking about, and he captured. You know, it was anti-racism, anti all of this stuff, and he got all of these members to follow him under this cult. And ultimately, when people found out that he was holding people hostage and wouldn't allow people to leave, he made them commit mass suicide, and everybody didn't go along with the suicide. A lot of those people who were murdered. And that's Guyana, Jim Jones, and this was a CIA. From my understanding, like a CIA program to see, you know, how could they get like Black people and people who were dissatisfied with the system to go along with this program or whatever. You know, CIA got a long mind control project. I think it was MK Ultra, and some other things, experimenting with LSD and mind, you know, different type of thing. But that's a whole nother story within itself.
It's so true and so true.
Wow.
Well, but you know what? We already been on here for an hour, over an hour, so we still got this Black Power file to get to, and it's something that I actually didn't know about until today. So I want to definitely get to that. We'll be right back after this. This is the New African Perspectives. Free the land, y'all. Free the land.
I fight for land, independence, and for reparations. We gotta do for self-determination.
Being independent is a very, very good thing, because it means that you don't have to be dependent, especially on people who don't like you. I mean, growing your own food, like teaching your own babies our real history, the real truth.
As a people, we are not grown unless we have independence. We are not grown as long as we living under another man's system, operating in his way of things, his laws, and his ordinances that support his rule, actually. So to me, it's not the importance of self-determination and independence. It is mandatory.
We could make a change, get off our ass, do something else. Go get some land together, grow our food and do for self. Create our own stores, our own banks, start building wealth. Break them generational curses and start healing self. Leaders, scholars, freedom fighters, all those soldiers who've been struggling for the liberation of Black people. This is the Black Power File.
Behind me is the old Illinois State Capitol, the building where Abraham Lincoln proclaimed in 1858 that a house divided cannot stand, and also the place where Barack Obama announced his historic candidacy for president of the United States. This is also the scene of a terrible race riot in 1908.
We had a riot, and the riot was a terrible thing. People died, families were broken up, businesses were destroyed, homes were destroyed.
For 2 long days, thousands of white residents rampaged the streets, outraged after 2 Black men were arrested on unrelated charges of the murder of a white man and a false accusation of rape by a white woman.
As the evening and the day progressed, the mob got bigger and bigger and bigger, and they then took their vengeance out on the area of town called the Levee and the Badlands, which was mostly where African Americans lived and had their businesses.
And the violence didn't end there. 2 African American men with no connection to the alleged crimes were lynched.
America has elected its first Black president.
I'm gonna end it right there. But so this is the Springfield massacre. 1908, as you heard, it was like two supposed crimes. One was a false accusation of a white woman being raped. That's familiar. And it led to 5,000 white people just rampaging, attacking this town. Several people were murdered, including the two guys that you saw that was lynched, and as well as over 2,000 black people had to flee. So you had 2,000 black people who just had to leave, or left to fend for themselves because they had to up and get out of Dodge. And this is something that's common. It happened. There are a lot of incidents. Well, I don't want to say incidents, but a lot of crimes against humanity like this that we never hear about. Many of them have been buried by history. I remember the first time I heard about the Devil's Punch Bowl down in Mississippi, down by the Delta, when basically Confederate soldiers put thousands and thousands of black people in concentration camps and didn't get them any food or water. The only thing they gave them is shovels to bury their dead. So there's a long history of brutality, genocide, murder of our people that nobody ever talks about, and for the most part, we don't even know about. So, and we're doing this particular story today because this happened on August 14th, 1908. So we have the anniversary of this terrible tragedy. So y'all have anything you want to say? I see Mama Ayo just dropped off. So do you have anything that you want to say about the?
Well, I've heard about this before, but until we decided to talk about it, this is the first time I actually looked further into it. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I grew up in Peoria, Illinois, which is like 60 minutes away from Springfield. I always think it's so interesting the way crackers respond, right, to whatever they got on in their world. You understand what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
1908, they claim that these two black raped white women or something of the sort. I know.
One was accused of murdering a white man, and one was accused, and somebody was accused of raping a white woman. Neither one of them two black dudes that was lynched had anything, were even accused of it. They were just random people who got opportunistically lynched.
Right. So those two black men that was accused of whatever, they was transported away. The white folks couldn't do anything to them, so they decided they was gonna go to the black community and destroy the black community, basically, right? Because they wasn't happy with their own life, because during that time they was having some economic issues. We know that in 1908, the height of the industrial period here in the States, they was having economic issues, not feeling very great about their white trash self, right? And so they decided they was going to go to the black community and ruin the black community. This is how these people respond. You know what I'm saying? Like, I always find it quite interesting. And we be having example after example all the way up until present day. The way these crackers come into whole black communities, push black people out for their own personal selfish gain, whatever that may be, right? Usually in alignment with capitalism, right? Because money over people, period.
Over people, period.
Money that ain't backed by nothing, right? We know it has not been backed by anything since the 1930s, okay? So these folks be going hard over paper that's not backed by jack, and willing to put your black life on the line for it. Your life don't matter. Your life is, so the fact that we want to continue to participate willingly with folks that do not have our best interests at heart, that we can literally say that we are insane collectively, right? We have mental issue collectively. That we are the only ones that can rectify that. And us um, separating ourselves and being independent is really the only way that we're going to heal from any of this. Any of the mental illness that we have and any social illness that we have. That's the only way that we as Black people are going to heal it. Substantially separate ourselves and become independent, and making sure that we can sustain that independence, meaning moving and operating offensively versus defensively. And I yield.
Definitely. Mama Ayo, did you have anything you wanted to say about this Springfield massacre that, like I said, I just found out about today?
Well, just to veggie back on what Sister Sa was saying, that they took accusations. First of all, always the white woman can cry rape and everybody goes crazy. Black woman cries rape and The whole fact is, I would love for 5,000 Black people to rise up over somebody. I would love for that to happen. And the other thing that I noticed is that they started off and they did do a couple of burnings of people who they felt were sympathizers with Black people, but ultimately they went towards that Black business district. You know how Beale Street has fallen to those that don't look like us when it used to be our Black business district. Well, back in the day, 1908, they just burnt them down, tried to shoot off some people, made sure that those that they held grudges who they thought were, from my opinion, if they felt that you were the uppity N-word or you had some arrogance about you, they was coming for you. This was just another justification, because at the end of the day, these two people were already incarcerated or held at the county jail. They had been taken away because somebody knew that they were coming for them later. So they weren't even in the jail. And that was another anger point. Oh, you weren't even there, so we could go ahead and lynch you? Oh, okay. We finna take it to the next level, which they did. And it isn't to say that the residents who are New African did not fight back. It was just that some had to retreat depending on how much deep, and I'm going to put it like that, defense they had. And others, they were, of course, beaten, robbed. And they said they went looting. They went looting. White folks went looting. They grabbed stuff. Same thing that you see happening today when we go into riot mode. Looting, breaking of windows. So the whole story has to be painted for that era. And it was a lot, as Sister Sa said, envy. Remember, coming from the South, we're the descendants of the people who built this country. Our trade, our ability to sew, our ability to work in factories, our ability to do all of that came with us as we traveled through the Great Migration. So there's a competition for labor. And that's why you had a Black business district, because you weren't supposed to be given a job. This ain't 1960, 1950s. This 1908. How many years 40 years. 40 years, only 40 years past emancipation or so. So
Something like
let's
that, yeah.
be, cognizant of the historical perspective under which they came. 40 years is not a long time, or even let's say 45 years, 46 years from the Civil War. Y'all, there's a lot of internal anger from America, white America, about that Civil War that has not been released yet. It still persists to this day. So we have to look at all those dynamics and to say we literally fought a war over you people. That's a psychologically mesmerizing topic. I'm going to be interested in knowing what you're getting ready to teach your children about. on the whole issue of the Civil War and abolition and so on and so on. So we loved our condition, but there's a whole Civil War that was fought for us. As my daughter says, make it make sense. I yield.
You know, I think it's quite interesting to add to what Mama Ida was saying. You know, you looking at the dynamics of the day. You know, Black folks, let's just say our communities was thorough. Okay, we made sure we had everything in all of these, and yes, this community was one of those Black communities that we all read about from back in that was built during the Reconstruction era, right? So this particular community was thriving. It had the different businesses that took care of our basic needs were there, right? And then for these crackers to come out of jealousy, out of spite, out of, just not happy. You can't be happy with your life if you gonna intentionally go destroy folks' lives that don't got nothing to do with your life like that, right? Can't be happy with your life. So they already had some issues, internal issues that they had going on. And just the fact that 5,000 white folks congregated, came together, it initially because they was mad at 2 Black men, but decided since we can't get them, we're going to destroy our whole Black community. 9 Black people died, right? 9 Black people died. This is the account. This is what the statistics are saying. 7 white people died. 5 at the hands of other Black civilians, because like my Mario said, yes, we was fighting back, but nobody just gonna be taking that. Okay, so 5 white people died, and then 2 white people supposedly committed suicide, during that time. Like I want to know what the situation was that you was like, yo, I'm about to commit suicide. Was you surrounded? Said, oh, I'm about to take my own life. I don't know, but that's the statistics. 9 Black people died, 7 whites died, 5 at the hands of the Black people, and 2 they killed themselves.
2 killed themselves. Well, I wonder, they probably ran into some of them brothers who were like the ones down in Montgomery who made them white folks jump into the water because they tried to get away from them. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, speaking, I know one of them who got killed was from one of the guys who was lynched. The first guy, as a matter of fact, the first guy who was lynched, he had a shotgun and he was busting at him. So he probably got a lot of them himself. That's why they lynched him. And I know the other guy who was lynched was actually an 84-year-old Black man who had been married to a white woman for 30 years. So, no, not going to have any of that.
Got him quick.
Yeah,
we got him quick. You the first example.
Yeah. You see, Baba Ukali. I'm sorry. Yeah, Ukali. Any talk of revolution begins with the work, study, and training that transform oppressed people into ungovernable freedom fighters who are their own liberators. And that's that is so true. That is so true. Because you don't just wake up one day and just know what to do. You don't just wake up and have your ideology right. You don't just wake up one day and say, oh, I need to have my own, you know what I'm saying? It takes your mind being open, being exposed to information, being exposed to the type of training that's going to tell you how to deal with these people on a strategic military level. So you said a whole mouthful, Baba.
Exactly.
Ukali.
Yes. I consider that to be the foundation, one of the foundations of the nation. Work, study, and training, and rebuilding new African family. I mean, what else is there?
And let us collectively continue to speak that. You hear me? Because that's the real. That is the real.
Definitely. Freedom Power. Nat Turner, Gabriel Prosser, Jonathan Jackson, Mutulu Shakur were all about rebellion for real,
And
because they
resist.
had analysis, purpose, and political plans behind their action. And I
Absolutely.
definitely agree with that. Definitely agree with that.
Absolutely.
I mean, if you notice, the type of people that we follow, that we cherish as our hero, all had that mentality. They all were analytical. They all were strategic. They wasn't just somebody who was doing something emotional. Just had some, oh damn, I'm getting mad. I grab a hammer and I'm gonna start hitting people. Which that can feel good, but it usually don't turn out well for yourself. But when you got that plan and your strategy, and you got it together, then things just turn out better for yourself. Political independence calls for a more sophisticated approach that goes beyond riots, spontaneous rebellion, and acts of retaliation. Our 8 strategic elements document lays out the general steps that must be taken to win, maintain, and freely exercise new African self-determination. Man,
that is true.
you on fire. You on fire, Elder.
And he's very, very true. We got to talk about them 8 strategic elements one show or a couple of shows. Because, I mean, it takes one whole show to just go through the first element, if you know what I mean.
Mm-hmm.
So that's something we may want to consider.
Hey, that's definitely. I'm definitely with that. Definitely with that. But yeah, we be on here all day talking, but eventually we got other things we got to do. We got our Metropolitan down here this weekend, right? You're gonna have an opportunity to meet the candidates this weekend. So if you're down in Ida Wells, make sure y'all check that out. It's gonna be held at the African Village Institute. Do anybody have that address on hand?
I know it's on Valentine.
Yeah,
and
it sure is.
I would have to look at a flyer. I think it's Sister Sam may have it.
12:25 Valentine.
12:25 at a time.
12:25.
Okay. So yeah, y'all, if y'all in town, you want an opportunity to see the candidates, to see, talk to the candidates, and have a back and forth converse, exchange some ideas. Every time we meet, we ought to have a strategy session to see, how we can better the goals and objectives and progress our movement. But I think it's about time for us to go get up out of here. There you go, 12:25. I'm gonna put it on the screen right now so y'all can see it. About time for us to get out of here. Anything y'all want to leave the people with before we get out of here?
Yes.
Just stay vigilant.
Remain vigilant and rebel.
Exactly. You know what? I don't really have any. Say that again, sir.
I said it in an organized sequence manner.
Exactly. So yeah, with that, we will see you again next week. Y'all gonna be on tomorrow morning. Sam Ayo.
Yes. At 10 o'clock. Or somewhere around there.
All right, somewhere around 10 tomorrow. Get your morning started out right. But free the land, y'all. Free the land.
Free the land. I am, I will. I am, I will.
Africa.
My name is Kwaku DC, and I'm one of the brothers on the Johns Island here.
Okay.
And what I do a combination of things, but I participate in a lot of Afrocentric programs and to help wake our people up. A lot of people don't know and trying to make us a better people and be the people that we're supposed to be. Understand that this is a tree that our ancestors, who was on John's Island, the tree was a place that we buried our people, had ceremonies around this tree in order to honor our ancestors, worship them. But a lot of people don't know it because through history things have been watered down and forgotten about.
We are now on what used to be the plantation of Mr. Justice Angel. Okay, and so he had this land in the 1700s. And so primarily, this tree was on his property even back then. This is the oldest known tree in this part of North America, east of the Mississippi River. It was here during the period not just of enslavement, but during the days when the Edisto, the Yamasee, and the Wadmalaw, and various other Native American tribal groups walked this land. So they have the saying, you know, if these streets could talk, they could tell us wonders. The same is true of this tree, because this tree was here when Justice Angel owned this plantation, where, of course, many of our ancestors from the Johns Island area were once enslaved.
The people that buried under this tree, because as it was saying, this was a marker of grave one time. On the plantation, they buried their trees so they can know where their people was buried. No ceremony for my people in this land. We remember them today because we need the positive energy of the ancestors be with us in our travel, as our journey. We need the power of the ancestors not to survive, but to live. We live. We don't survive. Animals survive. We live. As Africans, we live. No